Well, continuing the story of Joseph, when we finished in our last lesson, Israel had just said he would not allow them to take Benjamin back. Simeon's in prison in Egypt. The ruler of Egypt, whom they did not know as Joseph, told him they could not get any grain unless they brought their youngest brother. Israel said, "No, I can't allow it. It will send me to my grave." Well, eventually, all the food they had brought back from Egypt was gone. And Israel told his sons to go back to Egypt and buy more food. Judah said, "We can't do that." The ruler there warned us quite seriously and said we would not even be allowed in his presence without our brother. If you do not send Benjamin with us, there's no point in our making the journey. Israel asked, "Why did you tell him you had another brother? All you have done is make things worse for me." And his sons told him, "Well, the ruler questioned us intensely, asking us about our family and about us, and asked if our father was still alive, and he asked if we had another brother. We only answered his questions honestly. How could we expect him to demand us to bring our youngest brother to Egypt?" Judah said, "Father, please send Benjamin with me, and we will leave right away. That is what we must do in order for all of us to live. I will personally guarantee Benjamin's safety. If I do not bring him back to you, you can hold me responsible and blame me for the rest of my life. Father, if we had not delayed, we could have been there and back twice. Please, let us go now." Israel put his head in his hands and thought for a while. His sons waited anxiously, and then he told them, "Okay, if we have to do this, then here's what we're going to do. We're going to put some of Canaan's finest products and take them as gifts to the ruler of Egypt. Take some balm, honey, spices, myrrh, some pistachio nuts and almonds, twice as much silver as last time, and let's hope your silver had been put in your sacks by mistake." He sighed and shook his head before continuing. "Take your brother and go back to Egypt. May God Almighty grant you mercy when you are in front of the ruler of Egypt, so that he will let Simeon and Benjamin both return with you. If things do not go well, I will just grieve until I die." Well, Israel's sons did as their father had instructed them, and they hurried to Egypt because their families were running out of food. When they were ushered into Joseph's presence, he saw Benjamin with them. He told his chief servant to take them to his house and then prepare a meal for them to share with him at noon. Joseph's brothers were frightened at being taken to the ruler's house. They thought he wanted to take them as prisoners without making a public scene. They assumed it was because of the silver that had been put into their sacks on the first visit. They pleaded with Joseph's chief servant before they even entered Joseph's house. "Lord, we beg you for your forgiveness. When we came here before, it was to buy food. When we opened our sacks of grain, we found the exact amount of silver we had paid for the grain. So we brought the silver back along with additional silver in order to purchase more grain. We have no idea how our silver ended up in our sacks of grain. Oh, please, Lord, forgive us." Now Joseph's chief servant told him, "Don't be afraid. I received your silver. The God of your father put your silver in your sacks." With that, he brought Simeon to them. Then he provided water for them to wash their feet, and he provided food for their donkeys. Joseph's brothers prepared their gifts for Joseph's arrival. They wanted everything to be nicely displayed because they had been told they would be eating with the ruler of the land. When Joseph arrived, his brothers presented their gifts to him and bowed to the ground before him. He asked them how they were, and they said they were fine. Then he asked about their father, and they replied, "Your servant, our father, is still alive and doing well." Then they bowed to the ground again. Joseph looked at them. Seeing Benjamin, his own mother's son, he asked them, "Is this your youngest brother?" Looking at Benjamin, he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." Then Joseph's emotions overwhelmed him, and he rushed off to cry privately. After gaining some control of his emotions, he washed his face, and then he returned. He ordered his servants to serve the food. Now Joseph ate by himself because Egyptians would not eat with Hebrews. That was detestable to them. And Joseph was too important to eat with foreigners. Joseph had his servants arrange his brothers based on their ages, from oldest to youngest. This surprised the brothers. When the food was served, Benjamin's plate was filled with 5 times as much as anyone else. Again, the brothers were surprised. They did enjoy the feast, though. And Joseph told his chief servant to fill the men's sacks with as much food as their sacks would hold, along with their silver in each sack. He then said to place his silver cup, the one he drank from, in the youngest man's sack, along with the grain and silver. So in the morning, the brothers were sent on their way, but before they had gotten very far, Joseph told his chief servant, "Go after them and ask them why they have repaid good with evil. Tell them the cup your master drinks from and uses for divining things is missing. He knows you have taken it. This is a terrible thing that you have done." Well, the chief servant caught up with them and told them that, and the brothers said, "Why would our Lord say these things? We would never do anything like that. We even brought back the silver we found in our sacks from the first trip here. So why would we steal silver or gold from your master? If one of us has done this, then he should be put to death. And the rest of us will become your slaves." Joseph's chief servant said, "That's fine. Here's what will happen. The one who stole the cup will become my slave, and the rest of you will be allowed to go home." With that, the brothers all lowered their sacks and opened them. Joseph's chief servant searched each bag, beginning with the oldest, ending with the youngest. Benjamin's brothers wailed and tore their clothes as they discovered the cup in Benjamin's sack. They loaded their donkeys and returned to the city. Joseph was waiting in his house when his brothers were brought to him. They threw themselves on the ground before him, and he asked, "What have you done? Surely you must know a man like me can learn things by mysterious ways." Judah spoke, "My lord, what can we say? What can we say? How can we prove we're innocent? God has punished us for our secret sin. We are now your slaves, all of us, not just the one who had the cup." Joseph said, "No, there's no reason for me to do that. Only the one who had the cup will be my slave. The rest of you can return to your father without penalty." Judah approached Joseph and said, "Please, Lord, let your servant speak with you. Don't be angry with your servant, even though you are equal to Pharaoh himself. My Lord asked his servants if we had a father or a brother. We answered honestly that our father was old and our youngest brother was still with him. He was born to our father in his old age, and our youngest brother's mother, her other son, is dead. Our father loves this boy more than his own life. You told us to bring our youngest brother to you as proof we are not spies. We told you that our father would die if our youngest brother was brought here. However, you told us that we would not be allowed in your presence unless we brought our brother here. So we told our father what you said. And when he told us to return for more food, we knew we could not do that without our brother. Our father reminded us that the wife he loved the most had given him 2 sons. One was gone and probably torn to pieces by wild animals, and that if her other son was taken from him, he would surely die. Please, Lord, I pledge to my father that your servant would return his son. If we were to return home without him, he will surely die. Please, my Lord, allow me to remain as your slave in his place. Allow him to return to our father with his brothers. I could not bear to see my father if the boy is not with me. Hearing that, Joseph lost control and shouted for all his servants to leave immediately. He did not want anyone there when he disclosed his identity to his brothers, and he wailed so loudly that the Egyptians in his house heard him, and word was even sent to Pharaoh's house. Joseph's brothers did not know what to do. When all of the Egyptians were gone, Joseph cried out, I am your brother, Joseph. Is my father still alive? His brothers were so terrified they were unable to answer him. Joseph told his brothers, come close to me. When they gathered around him, he said, yes, I am your brother, Joseph, whom you sold into slavery. Don't worry and don't be angry at yourselves for selling me. God sent me ahead of you in order to save many lives, including our family. This famine has lasted 2 years, and there will be 5 more years of famine. God sent me to Egypt, not you. And God made me like a father to Pharaoh, in charge of Pharaoh's house and all of Egypt. Now, hurry back to our father and tell him, this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me the ruler over all of Egypt. Come to Egypt. Don't delay. You will live near me, and you will live in the land of Goshen. Bring everyone with you, all your children and grandchildren, all your flocks and herds, everything you have. I will provide for you there, because there are 5 more years of famine that everyone must endure. If you do not come to Egypt, you will lose everything you have. My brothers, you can see that I am Joseph. Tell our father about how Egypt has honored me. Tell him about everything you have seen, but hurry and bring our father here. After he had finished speaking, he hugged his brother Benjamin and wept as Benjamin hugged him. Then he kissed all his brothers and wept over them as well. Then all of his brothers talked with him. When Pharaoh's palace heard about Joseph's brothers being in Egypt, Pharaoh and all his officials were pleased. Pharaoh told Joseph to have his brothers load their animals and go back to Canaan to bring their father and their families to Egypt. Tell them, I will give them the best land in all of Egypt for them to enjoy. Tell them to take some of our carts for their children and their wives. They don't have to bring any of their belongings to Egypt. I will provide everything they need. Well, the sons of Israel took the carts that Joseph had given them and all the provisions they would need. He gave each of his brothers new clothing, but to Benjamin he gave 5 sets of clothing plus so much silver it was ridiculous. As his brothers left, Joseph told them not to quarrel along the way. The brothers left Egypt and hurried to their father in Canaan. They told him, Joseph is alive. He's now the ruler of Egypt. Israel was shocked and did not believe them. But when they told him about everything they had seen, what had happened, and when he saw everything they'd brought with them, he was convinced. and he wanted to hurry to see Joseph before he died. So as quickly as they could, they packed up everything they owned, and Israel and all of his people left their home. On their way, Israel offered sacrifice to the God of his father at Beersheba. There God spoke to him in a vision during the night. He said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go to Egypt. I will go with you and make your descendants into a great nation while they are in Egypt. Then I will bring your descendants back to Canaan, which I have promised to you. Joseph's own hands will close your eyes when the time is done, when your time is done. So Israel and his people continued their journey as family, not counting his sons' wives, totaled 66 people. Counting Joseph's wife and sons, there were 70 people in the family. Now Israel sent Judah ahead of everyone to ask Joseph how to get to Goshen. When everyone arrived in Goshen, Joseph had his chariot take him there immediately so he could see his father. As soon as Joseph saw his father, he rushed to his father, threw his arms around his father, and wept for a long time. Israel told Joseph, now I am prepared to die, because I have seen for myself that you are still alive. Oh. Well, when the family arrived in Egypt, Joseph told them he would speak to Pharaoh and tell them they were shepherds. So when they appeared before Pharaoh, they should say they were shepherds, the sons of shepherds, because Pharaoh would let them settle in the land of Goshen because that was distant and wonderful grazing land, but because Egyptians considered shepherds as undesirable. So when Joseph went to Pharaoh, he took 5 of his brothers with him. As Joseph expected, Pharaoh asked Joseph's brothers what they did. They responded that they were shepherds like their fathers were for multiple generations. They also said, we have come here to live for a while because the famine was so severe in Canaan. They concluded by asking for permission to live in Goshen. Pharaoh then told Joseph to give his family the best grazing land Egypt had, and that if Joseph knew someone in his family that was gifted in animal care, he should put them in charge of his own livestock. Now it wasn't long before Joseph took his father to meet Pharaoh. Israel then blessed Pharaoh, and Pharaoh asked Israel how old he was. Israel responded that he had lived 130 difficult years, not nearly as long as his fathers had lived. Joseph made sure his family was settled in Goshen and that they were well taken care of. Now the severe famine continued throughout Egypt and Canaan. Joseph sold grain to everyone until Pharaoh had virtually all the money in the entire region. This resulted in the people of Egypt pleading with Joseph that they needed food but had no money to purchase food. Joseph told the people to sell their livestock in exchange for food. So during that year, Pharaoh acquired all of the livestock of Egypt. The next year, the people of Egypt told Joseph they had no money and no livestock. All they had left was their land and their bodies. They begged Joseph to buy their land and themselves so that they could make sure Egypt's land did not become useless. So Joseph bought all of the land for Pharaoh, and the people of Egypt all became Pharaoh's slaves. Although Joseph did not buy the land that belonged to the priests because Pharaoh provided food for them. So that's why they didn't sell their land to Pharaoh. Joseph told the people that Pharaoh would provide them with seeds to plant, and that when they harvested their crops, they would give to Pharaoh 1/5 of the harvest, but they could keep the rest for themselves. And everyone agreed Joseph had saved their lives. And Israel's family was prosperous and grew rapidly. Israel lived 17 years in Egypt, totaling 147 years of life. As he neared the end of his life, he called for his son Joseph and said, if you will honor my request, promise that I will not be buried in Egypt. bury me in Canaan where my fathers are buried." Joseph promised his father that he would bury him with his fathers. Then Israel leaned on his staff and worshipped God. It wasn't too long before Joseph was told his father was quite sick. So Joseph took his sons Manasseh and Ephraim with him to visit his father. When Israel was told Joseph was there, he used what little strength he had left and sat up in his bed. Israel told Joseph that God had appeared to him at Luz in the land of Canaan, and that was where God blessed him and told him that he would give more descendants than anyone could count, that his descendants would own Canaan. Then Israel told Joseph that Ephraim and Manasseh would be considered his sons, just like Reuben and Simeon. He told Joseph any additional sons Joseph had would be considered Joseph's sons. He also told Joseph that his mother was buried near Ephrath, now called Bethlehem. Israel noticed Joseph's sons and asked who they were. Joseph said they were the sons God had given him in Egypt. Israel told Joseph to have his sons come close so he could bless them. Israel's vision had become very poor, so Joseph had his sons stand right next to his father. Israel hugged and kissed them. Israel told Joseph, "I never expected to see you again, and now I have been blessed to see you and your sons." Joseph had his oldest son stand next to his father's right hand and his younger son stand next to his father's left hand for the traditional format of blessings. But when his father went to bless his sons, he crossed his hands so that Ephraim, Joseph's younger son, received the firstborn's blessings with his father's right hand. Joseph objected, but his father said that he knew what he was doing. Israel then blessed Joseph and his sons. Before continuing to bless all of his sons, he also told them what their future would be like. After Israel died, Joseph laid on top of his father, weeping and kissing him. The Egyptians mourned for Israel's death for 70 days. Pharaoh granted Joseph permission to bury his father in Canaan, and all Pharaoh's officials accompanied him and his brothers and all those belonging to their father's clan. Their children and animals remained in Goshen. Now a great many chariots and horsemen escorted them to Canaan. A very large number of people accompanied Joseph and his brothers. Upon arriving at Israel's burial site, everyone observed a 7-day time of mourning and then returned to Egypt. Now, upon returning to Egypt, Joseph's brothers were worried that he might be angry with them and try to take revenge against them for what they'd done to him. So they told Joseph that their father had told them that they should tell Joseph he needed to forgive his brothers for how they had treated him. Then they asked Joseph to forgive their sins. Hearing that, Joseph wept. Then his brothers bowed to the ground in front of Joseph and said, "We are your slaves." Joseph told them they had nothing to fear, that he was not God, and he was not qualified to pass judgment on them. He explained that while he knew they had intended to harm him, nothing happened unless God allowed it, and God wanted him in Egypt so that many lives would be saved. He continued and said, "Don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children." Eventually, one day, Joseph summoned his brothers to him, told them he knew he would die soon, but they should remember that God had promised their family would one day own Canaan. He made them promise that when that day arrived, they would take his bones with them, and bury him in Canaan. Joseph lived 110 years, seeing the third generation of his own family. What a great man, and so many lessons. I hope you were listening.